German Shepherd, was stuck in a tunnel. Slide at the park for hours. What baby did next was pure magic. What happened next will shock you. A 5-year-old boy heard something that no one else could hear, and what he did saved a life in the most unbelievable way. If you love stories that restore your faith in the impossible, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment below to let us know where you're watching from. This is a story you absolutely need to listen to. The morning sun painted everything golden at Willowbrook Park, but something felt different that Tuesday. Maya Rodriguez adjusted her worn leather purse and watched her 5-year-old son, Ethan, kick at loose gravel near the parking lot. Most kids would be racing toward the bright red swings or the colorful jungle gym that sat in the center of the park. But Ethan wasn't like most kids. "Mommy, not there," Ethan said quietly, his dark eyes fixed on something beyond the main playground. His voice carried that strange certainty that had started appearing in recent months, the kind that made Maya's chest tighten with worry and wonder. "What do you mean, baby?" Maya knelt beside him, following his gaze toward the far end of the park where older, quieter equipment sat half hidden behind a cluster of oak trees. "The good swings are right here." Ethan shook his head slowly, his small fingers wrapping around Maya's hand. "Someone needs us over there, in the dark place." Maya felt the familiar chill that came with Ethan's mysterious statements. Since his 4th birthday, her son had been saying things that didn't make sense, pointing at empty corners of rooms and insisting someone was there, waking up in the middle of the night, talking about people she'd never met. The pediatrician called it an active imagination. Maya called it terrifying. "Ethan, honey, there's nobody over there. Look, see, it's just us and Mrs. Chen with her little dog." Maya pointed toward an elderly woman walking a tiny Yorkshire Terrier near the pond. "How about we go swing for a while, and then we can get ice cream?" But Ethan was already walking away from her, his small sneakers crunching on fallen leaves as he headed toward the forgotten section of Willowbrook Park. Maya hurried to catch up, her heart beating faster with each step. The newer playground equipment gave way to older, more weathered structures. Paint peeled from metal bars, and weeds grew through cracks in the rubber matting. "Ethan, wait!" Maya called, but her son had stopped in front of a large, cylindrical metal tunnel slide that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The structure was bigger than the modern plastic slides, with a dark tunnel entrance that seemed to swallow the morning light. Ethan stood perfectly still, his head tilted as if listening to something only he could hear. "He's in there," he whispered. "Who's in there?" Maya asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. "The dog. He's been waiting so long." Ethan's voice was matter of fact, the way other children might announce they were hungry or tired. "He can't get out, and he's getting really scared." Maya felt her stomach drop. She approached the tunnel slide cautiously, bending down to peer into the dark opening. The interior was completely black, and she could hear nothing but the distant sound of traffic and birds chirping in the trees above. "Ethan, I don't hear anything. Are you sure you're not imagining?" "Mommy, please listen harder," Ethan interrupted, his voice urgent now. He crawled halfway into the tunnel entrance, his small body disappearing into the darkness. He's crying, but not with his voice. He's crying inside. Maya's maternal instincts kicked into overdrive. She grabbed Ethan's legs and pulled him back out of the tunnel. "Ethan Miguel Rodriguez, you do not crawl into strange places like that. This equipment is probably old and dangerous, and we need to—" "Mommy, he's stuck!" Ethan's scream cut through the peaceful morning air like a knife. His eyes were wide with terror, and tears streamed down his cheeks. "He's stuck, and he's giving up, and he thinks nobody's coming, and he's so scared and lonely and—" Okay, calm down," Maya said, pulling Ethan into her arms. His small body was shaking, and she could feel his heart racing against her chest. "Let's say there is a dog in there. What do you want me to do?" Ethan pulled back to look at her, his face streaked with tears, but his eyes deadly serious. "Call the people who help animals. Call them right now." Maya looked around the empty park, then back at her son's desperate face. Every logical part of her brain said this was impossible, but Ethan's certainty, his raw emotion, the way he'd been drawn to this exact spot, it all felt too real to dismiss. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "Hi, this is going to sound crazy, but I think there might be an animal trapped in playground equipment at Willowbrook Park. My son says he can hear a dog stuck in one of the tunnel slides. There was a pause on the other end. Ma'am, are you able to see or hear this animal yourself? Maya looked at Ethan, who was now sitting cross-legged in front of the tunnel entrance, his small hand pressed against the metal, as if he were trying to comfort whatever was inside. No, I can't hear anything, but my son is very certain, and he's usually right about these things. Another pause. We'll send someone out to check, ma'am. Please stay away from the equipment until we arrive. Maya hung up and sat on a nearby bench, watching Ethan. He hadn't moved from his position by the tunnel. His lips were moving, but she couldn't make out the words. It looked like he was having a conversation with someone she couldn't see. What are you doing, baby? She asked gently. I'm telling him help is coming, Ethan replied without looking away from the tunnel. He's been alone for so long, Mommy. He thought everyone forgot about him. 20 minutes later, a white animal control van pulled into the park, followed by a police cruiser. Maya waved them over, feeling ridiculous and worried in equal measure. The animal control officer, a burly man with kind eyes, introduced himself as Officer Martinez. So, what seems to be the problem? He asked, looking between Maya and Ethan. My son believes there's a dog trapped inside that tunnel slide, Maya explained, gesturing toward the structure. I know it sounds impossible, but not impossible, Officer Martinez interrupted. Animals can get stuck in all sorts of places. Let me take a look. He approached the tunnel slide with a flashlight, crouching down to shine the beam into the dark opening. Maya watched his face carefully, hoping to see some sign of recognition or concern. Instead, after several minutes of looking and listening, he stood up and shook his head. I don't see or hear anything in there, he said. The tunnel appears to be clear. But he's in there, Ethan said, jumping up from his spot. He's just not making noise anymore because he's too tired and scared. Officer Martinez looked at Maya sympathetically. Kids have great imaginations. Maybe he heard a bird or saw a shadow. Please check again, Maya found herself saying. What if you're wrong? The police officer, a young woman with short blonde hair, stepped forward. Ma'am, we understand your concern, but we can't launch a full rescue operation based on a 5-year-old's imagination. There's no evidence of an animal in distress. Ethan's face crumpled. They don't believe me. It's not that we don't believe you, Officer Martinez said gently, crouching down to Ethan's level. It's just that sometimes our minds can play tricks on us. Sometimes we think we hear things that aren't really there. But he is there, Ethan insisted. He's a big dog with brown and black fur, and he's hurt, and he's been waiting and waiting and waiting. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. Ethan, how do you know what he looks like? Ethan turned to her with those serious dark eyes. Because I can see him, Mommy, just like I can see you. The officers exchanged glances. Maya could see the pity in their faces, the assumption that she was an overwhelmed single mother dealing with a child who needed professional help. We'll file a report, the police officer said. But unless we have concrete evidence of an animal in distress, there's nothing more we can do. As they packed up their equipment, Maya noticed Ethan walking back to the tunnel slide. He sat down beside it again, his small hand pressed against the metal surface. I'm not leaving, he announced. Someone has to stay with him. Maya looked at her watch. It was nearly noon. They had been at the park for 2 hours, and Ethan showed no signs of giving up. Part of her wanted to drag him home and make an appointment with a child psychologist. But another part of her, the part that had learned to trust her son's strange intuition, wondered if she should listen. Ethan, baby, we can't stay here all day. Then you go home, Ethan said simply. I'm not leaving him alone. Maya felt her heart break a little. She'd never seen her son so determined, so certain about anything. She sat down on the bench again, pulled out her phone, and called her sister. Elena, it's Maya. I need you to cover my shift at the restaurant tonight. I'm going to be here a while. As the afternoon wore on, Maya watched Ethan maintain his vigil by the tunnel slide. He didn't ask for food or water. He didn't complain about being bored. He just sat there, occasionally moving his lips as if speaking to someone, sometimes nodding as if receiving an answer. Other park visitors came and went. A few asked if everything was okay. Maya found herself explaining the situation over and over, watching their faces change from concern to confusion to barely concealed judgment. Maybe you should take him home, suggested a woman with 2 young children. He's been sitting there for hours. I tried, Maya replied. He won't leave. By 4 o'clock, the park had emptied except for them. The afternoon sun was beginning to sink lower in the sky, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Maya was starting to feel desperate. She needed to get Ethan home, needed to feed him dinner, needed to maintain some semblance of normal life. "Ethan," she said, walking over to where he sat, "we really need to go home now." Ethan looked up at her, and Maya was shocked to see tears streaming down his face. "Mommy, he's giving up. He's so tired and hungry, and he doesn't think anyone's coming anymore. He's ready to go to sleep forever." The raw pain in her son's voice made Maya's chest tighten. "Baby, I don't know what to do. The police and animal control already checked. There's nothing I can—" "There's another way in," Ethan said suddenly, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "He showed me." "What do you mean?" Ethan stood up and walked to the back of the slide structure, where it connected to a small platform. Maya followed him, watching as he knelt down and began brushing away leaves and debris from the base of the equipment. "There's a door here," he said, his small hands working frantically. "It's hidden, but it's here. He told me about it." Maya looked at the area Ethan was clearing. It looked like solid ground covered in years of fallen leaves and accumulated dirt. "Ethan, I don't see—" "Help me, Mommy!" Ethan's voice was urgent. "Please, there's not much time." Something in his tone made Maya drop to her knees beside him. Together they cleared away the debris, their hands growing dirty as they dug through layers of leaves and soil. Maya was about to give up when her fingers hit something hard and metallic. "What is that?" she breathed. They cleared away more dirt, revealing the edge of what looked like a small metal panel or hatch. It was almost completely buried and covered in rust, as if it had been there for years. Maya's heart began to race. "Ethan, how did you know this was here?" "He showed me in my head," Ethan said simply. "He said it was the way the repair people used to get inside to fix things." Maya stared at the buried hatch, her mind reeling. There was no way her 5-year-old son could have known about this. No way he could have guessed that there was a hidden access panel beneath years of accumulated earth and leaves. She pulled out her phone and called 911 again. 911, what's your emergency? This is Maya Rodriguez again, calling about the possible trapped animal at Willowbrook Park. We found something. There's a hidden access panel buried under the playground equipment. I think my son might have been right. This time, the dispatcher took her seriously. Within 30 minutes, Officer Martinez was back, along with 2 other animal control officers and a small crowd of curious onlookers who had gathered as word spread through the neighborhood. Maya watched nervously as they examined the buried hatch. "This is definitely an access panel," Officer Martinez confirmed. "Probably for maintenance on the internal structure, but it's been sealed shut for years by the look of it." "Can you open it?" Maya asked. "We can try." They brought tools from their van, a crowbar, a hammer, various other implements Maya didn't recognize. As they worked to pry open the rusted hatch, Maya noticed Ethan had gone very still beside her. "What is it, baby?" she asked. "He knows help is coming," Ethan whispered. "He's trying to stay awake." The hatch finally gave way with a loud scraping sound. Officer Martinez shone his flashlight into the opening, and Maya watched his face change from skepticism to shock. "Oh my God," he breathed. "There's definitely something down there." Maya's heart stopped. "What do you see?" "I can see fur. And, Jesus, it's moving." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. More equipment was brought over. The opening was widened carefully to avoid causing further injury. And slowly, painstakingly, they began to extract what was inside. When Maya finally saw the dog, her breath caught in her throat. It was a German Shepherd, just as Ethan had described, brown and black fur, though now matted and dirty. The animal was barely conscious, clearly dehydrated and weak. One of its legs appeared to be caught in some kind of metal mechanism inside the structure. "How long has he been in there?" someone in the crowd asked. "Hard to say," Officer Martinez replied grimly, "but based on his condition, it's been days, maybe longer." Maya looked at Ethan, who was watching the rescue with quiet intensity. "How did you know?" she asked him. "He told me," Ethan said simply. "He said his name is Scout, and he's been waiting for someone to hear him." Officer Martinez looked up from where he was carefully freeing the dog's leg. "Did you say Scout?" "Yes," Ethan nodded. "Why?" "There was a missing dog report filed about a week ago. German Shepherd named Scout. Owner said he disappeared during a storm." He looked at Maya with something like awe. "Your son just solved a missing persons case." As they lifted Scout from his underground prison, Maya noticed something else. The dog's eyes, though weak and tired, were fixed on Ethan, and when Ethan stepped closer, Scout's tail gave the faintest wag. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said softly, reaching out to touch Scout's head. "I told you someone would come." Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her son comfort the rescued animal. Around them, the crowd was murmuring in amazement, taking photos and videos, asking questions she couldn't even begin to answer. But all Maya could think about was the impossible truth of what had just happened. Her 5-year-old son had somehow known about an animal trapped in a place no one else could have imagined. He had found a hidden access panel buried under years of debris. He had refused to give up when everyone else said he was wrong. As the veterinary team arrived to transport Scout to the emergency animal hospital, Maya knelt beside her son. "Ethan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. How did you really know about Scout?" Ethan looked at her with those serious dark eyes, and for a moment, Maya saw something ancient and knowing in his young face. "Sometimes I can hear things that other people can't hear, Mommy, and sometimes I can see things that other people can't see. Scout was calling for help, and I was the only one who could hear him." Maya felt the world shift slightly around her. "What else can you hear, baby?" Ethan glanced around the crowd, then back at her. "Lots of things, but don't worry, Mommy. I only pay attention to the ones who really need help." As they loaded Scout into the veterinary van, Maya noticed the dog's eyes were still fixed on Ethan, and in that moment, she realized that her son's strange gift wasn't something to be feared or explained away. It was something to be honored and protected. The sun was setting as they finally left the park, but Maya knew their story was far from over. Whatever had happened today, whatever connection Ethan had made with Scout, it was just the beginning of something much bigger than she could have imagined. As they walked back to their car, Ethan slipped his small hand into hers. "Mommy?" "Yes, baby. Scout wants to come home with us when he gets better." Maya squeezed his hand gently. "We'll see, Ethan. We'll see." But deep down, she already knew the answer. After everything that had happened today, after all the impossible things that had somehow proven true, Maya was beginning to understand that when her son said something was going to happen, it usually did. The next morning, Maya woke to find Ethan's bed empty. Panic shot through her chest as she rushed through their small apartment, calling his name. She found him in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, staring at the wall with that distant expression she'd come to recognize. "Ethan, you scared me to death. What are you doing out here?" "Scout had a bad dream," Ethan said without looking away from the wall. "He was calling for me." Maya felt that familiar chill run down her spine. "Ethan, Scout is at the animal hospital. He's not here. I know where he is, Mommy, but he can still talk to me." Ethan finally turned to look at her, his dark eyes serious. He's scared because he doesn't know if his real family still wants him. He thinks they forgot about him. Before Maya could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Willowbrook Animal Hospital. "Hello? Mrs. Rodriguez? This is Dr. Patricia Wells from the Animal Hospital. I'm calling about Scout, the German Shepherd your son helped rescue yesterday." Maya's heart skipped. "Is he okay?" "He's doing much better, actually. Remarkably well, considering what he has been through. But I'm calling because we have a problem. We contacted his registered owner, a man named David Chen, and he's refusing to take Scout back." "What? Why?" "He says Scout has been nothing but trouble since he got him. Apparently the dog has been acting strangely for months, whining at night, trying to dig holes in the yard, running away. Mr. Chen claims he's tried everything and doesn't want to deal with a defective dog anymore." Maya looked at Ethan, who was nodding, as if he could hear both sides of the conversation. "What happens to Scout now?" Maya asked. "Well, we'll have to contact the county shelter. But to be honest, Mrs. Rodriguez, Scout's chances aren't good. He's 5 years old, he's been traumatized, and he's showing signs of what we might call selective attachment." "What does that mean?" "He won't let anyone near him except the staff member who looks most like your son. Young, dark hair, about the same height when sitting. It's like he's looking for someone specific." Maya felt her stomach flutter. "Dr. Wells, would it be possible for us to visit Scout today?" "Of course, but I should warn you, we can't guarantee he'll be available for adoption. His behavioral issues might make him unsuitable for most families." After hanging up, Maya found Ethan putting on his shoes. "We're going to see Scout now, right?" he asked, sore. "How did you know I was going to say yes?" Ethan smiled for the first time since the rescue. Because Scout told me you would. The drive to the animal hospital was quiet, but Maya's mind was racing. She was a single mother working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Their apartment was tiny, with no yard. She'd never owned a dog before. Everything logical told her this was a terrible idea. But when they walked into the recovery area and she saw Scout's reaction to Ethan, logic went out the window. The German Shepherd was lying on a small cot, bandages around his injured leg. The moment he saw Ethan, his entire body transformed. His ears perked up, his tail began wagging frantically, and he tried to stand despite his injuries. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said softly, approaching the cot. "I told you I'd come back." Scout leaned into Ethan's touch, making small whimpering sounds that somehow seemed like words. Dr. Wells, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, watched the interaction with amazement. "I've never seen anything like this," she murmured to Maya. "Scout has been completely withdrawn since we brought him in. He wouldn't even take food from our hands. But look at him now." Maya watched her son gently stroke Scout's head, speaking to him in low, soothing tones. "Ethan, what is Scout telling you?" "He's saying thank you, and he's asking if he can stay with us forever." Ethan looked up at Maya with hopeful eyes. "Can he, Mommy? Please?" Dr. Wells pulled Maya aside. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I need to be honest with you. Scout has been through severe trauma. He's going to need patience, understanding, and probably ongoing behavioral therapy. He might have accidents in the house. He might have nightmares. He might not trust other people for a long time. But he trusts Ethan. Yes, he does. And that's remarkable. In 30 years of veterinary practice, I've never seen a bond form this quickly between a rescued animal and a child." Dr. Wells paused. "If you're serious about this, I'd be willing to waive the adoption fees and provide free follow-up care. What your son did yesterday was extraordinary, and I think Scout knows it." Maya looked back at Ethan and Scout. The dog had somehow maneuvered his way into Ethan's lap, despite his size and injuries. Her son was whispering something to Scout, and the dog's tail was wagging so hard it was shaking the entire cot. "What do you think, Ethan? Are you ready to take care of Scout?" "I've been taking care of him since yesterday, Mommy. Now I just get to do it at home." The adoption paperwork took 2 hours. During that time, Maya learned more about Scout's history. He'd been found as a stray puppy 3 years ago, adopted by David Chen, and had been a normal, happy dog until about 6 months ago. That's when the strange behavior started. "It's like he was searching for something," Dr. Wells explained as they filled out forms. "Or someone. Mr. Chen said Scout would sit by the window for hours, whining. He'd dig holes in the yard as if he was trying to find something buried, and he kept trying to run away, always in the same direction." "What direction?" Maya asked. "Toward Willowbrook Park." Maya felt goosebumps rise on her arms. 6 months ago? "Yes, why?" Maya glanced at Ethan, who was still sitting with Scout. That's when Ethan started having his experiences, when he started saying he could hear things that other people couldn't hear. Dr. Wells followed Maya's gaze. "You think there's a connection?" "I don't know what to think anymore." They brought Scout home that afternoon. Maya had stopped by the pet store to buy basic supplies, food, water bowls, a bed, a leash. She'd maxed out her credit card, but seeing Ethan's face when Scout limped into their apartment made every penny worth it. "This is our home now," Ethan told the Scout, showing him around the small space. "That's Mommy's room, and that's my room, and this is where we eat, and this is where we watch TV. Scout followed Ethan slowly, sniffing everything, but never straying far from the boy's side. When they reached Ethan's bedroom, Scout lay down on the carpet beside the bed and closed his eyes. "He's tired," Ethan announced. "He hasn't slept good in a long time." That evening, Maya made dinner while Ethan sat on the floor with Scout. She could hear him talking quietly to the dog, though she couldn't make out the words. Every so often, Scout would make a small sound, almost like he was responding. "Ethan, what are you two talking about?" "Scout was telling me about the scary place under the slide. He said he went there to hide from the thunder, but then he got stuck and couldn't get out." Ethan's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were reporting on the weather. "He said he called and called for help, but nobody could hear him except me." Maya sat down on the couch, watching her son and their new dog. "How long has Scout been able to talk to you?" "Since the big storm last week. That's when he first started calling for help." Ethan looked up at her. "Mommy, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, baby." Scout isn't the only one who talks to me. There are lots of animals who need help, and sometimes people too, but Scout was the loudest because he was the most scared. Maya felt her world tilt slightly. What kind of people, Ethan? Lonely people, lost people, people who are stuck like Scout was stuck. Ethan's voice was getting sleepy. But don't worry, Mommy. I only help the ones who really need it. That night, Maya lay awake listening to the sounds from Ethan's room. She could hear her son breathing deeply, the soft sighs of sleep. But she could also hear Scout, not barking or whimpering, but making small sounds that almost sounded like whispered words. Around midnight, she got up to check on them. What she saw made her heart stop. Ethan was sitting up in bed, wide awake, staring at the corner of his room. Scout was beside him, also alert, his head tilted as if he were listening to something. Both of them were perfectly still, perfectly focused on something Maya couldn't see. "Ethan," she whispered, "what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, Mommy. Someone just wanted to say thank you." "Who?" Ethan turned to look at her, and in the dim light from the hallway, his eyes seemed older than his 5 years. "The man who used to take care of Scout. He was looking for him for a long time, and now he knows Scout is safe." Maya felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. "What man, Ethan?" "The nice man in the blue uniform. He said his name was Officer Jake, and he was really worried about Scout when he couldn't find him." Maya's breath caught. "Baby, what did this man look like?" "He was tall with gray hair and kind eyes. He said he has been watching over Scout since the storm, but he couldn't help him get out of the tunnel." Ethan yawned. "He said thank you for listening when nobody else could." Maya stood frozen in the doorway. She'd never told Ethan about the missing person reports she'd looked up online after Scout's rescue. She'd never mentioned Officer Jake Morrison, the retired police officer who'd been Scout's handler in the K-9 unit before he passed away from a heart attack 3 months ago. The same Officer Jake who had been David Chen's neighbor and had convinced him to adopt Scout in the first place. "Ethan, where did you learn about Officer Jake?" But her son was already asleep. Scout curled up beside him on the bed. Maya stood there for a long time, watching them breathe in unison, trying to process what she'd just heard. The next morning brought new challenges. Maya had to return to work, but she was terrified to leave Ethan alone with Scout. What if the dog's behavior changed? What if Ethan's abilities led to more supernatural encounters? Her sister Elena came over to help. "Maya, you look terrible. Did you sleep at all?" "Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to promise not to think I'm crazy." "Okay, shoot." Maya told her everything, about Ethan's strange statements over the past few months, about Scout's rescue, about the conversation she'd overheard the night before. Elena listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. "So, you think Ethan is, what, psychic?" "I think Ethan can communicate with things that other people can't. And I think Scout can too." Maya glanced toward the living room, where Ethan was sharing his cereal with Scout. "I think they found each other for a reason." Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Maya, do you remember when we were kids and you used to have those dreams?" "What dreams?" "The ones where you'd dream about things that hadn't happened yet. You predicted Grandma's accident, the fire at the school, when Mrs. Garcia's baby was born early." Elena's voice was gentle. "Mom always said you had a gift, but you stopped talking about the dreams when you got older." Maya felt something stir in her memory. "I remember, but I convinced myself they were just coincidences." "What if they weren't? What if it runs in the family and Ethan got it stronger than you did?" Before Maya could respond, Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mommy, we need to go to the park today." "Why, baby?" "Because there's a little girl there who's lost, and Scout knows where she is." Maya and Elena exchanged glances. Maya pulled out her phone and checked the local news. There, on the front page of the community website, was a breaking news alert. 7-year-old girl missing from Willowbrook Park area, search teams being organized. Maya's hands shook as she showed Elena the screen. The article was time-stamped just 20 minutes ago. "How could he know about this?" Elena whispered. "Because Scout told him," Ethan said simply. "Her name is Lily, and she's hiding in the old treehouse behind the pond because she's scared of the thunder. But the thunder stopped, and now she can't find her way home." Maya stared at her son. "Ethan, how long have you known about Lily?" "Since Scout woke me up this morning. He said we needed to help her because she's little and scared like he was." Ethan looked between Maya and Elena. "We're going to help her, right?" Maya looked at Elena, who nodded slowly. Yes, baby, we're going to help her. As they prepared to leave for the park, Maya realized that yesterday's rescue was just the beginning. Whatever gift Ethan had, whatever connection he shared with Scout, it was going to lead them into situations she couldn't imagine. And for the first time since this all started, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. What would you do if your child could hear voices that others couldn't? Let us know in the comments below. When they arrived at Willowbrook Park, the scene was chaos. Police cars lined the parking area, their red and blue lights flashing against the morning sky. Search and rescue volunteers were gathering near the main entrance, some with dogs of their own, others carrying radios and maps. Yellow tape had been strung around several areas, and Maya could hear someone with a megaphone calling out instructions. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but the park is closed due to an ongoing search operation," a young police officer told them as they approached. "My son might be able to help," Maya said, feeling ridiculous even as the words left her mouth. "He's the one who found the trapped dog yesterday." The officer looked skeptical. "I'm sorry, but we can't have civilians interfering with the search, especially not children." "Please," Maya insisted. "Just let me talk to whoever's in charge. My son has a special ability to find people who are lost." Before the officer could respond, Ethan slipped away from Maya's side and walked directly toward the pond area, Scout limping faithfully beside him. Maya's heart stopped as she watched her son duck under the yellow tape and disappear into the crowd of searchers. "Ethan!" she called, running after him. She found him standing in front of a tall woman in a sheriff's uniform who was studying a map of the park. Scout sat beside Ethan, both of them looking up at the woman with identical expressions of patient determination. "Sheriff Martinez," the woman was saying into her radio, "we've covered Sector 3 twice and there's no sign of her. Moving to Sector 4 now." "Excuse me," Ethan said politely. "Are you looking for Lily?" Sheriff Martinez looked down at him, her expression softening slightly. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. But this is a dangerous situation, and you need to stay with your mother." "I know where she is," Ethan said simply. Maya caught up to them, breathing hard. "I'm so sorry, Sheriff. My son got away from me." "It's okay," Sheriff Martinez said, but her attention was focused on Ethan. "Son, what did you say about knowing where Lily is?" "She's in the old treehouse behind the pond. She's been there since the thunder started last night, but she's afraid to come down because she can't see her daddy anywhere." Sheriff Martinez frowned. "We've searched that area thoroughly. There's no treehouse behind the pond." "There is," Ethan insisted. "It's really old and covered with vines so you can't see it from the ground, but it's there." Maya watched the sheriff's face carefully. She could see the woman's professional skepticism warring with something else, maybe desperation, maybe intuition. "Sheriff Martinez," Maya said quietly, "yesterday my son found a dog that had been trapped for days in a place no one else thought to look. He led us to a hidden access panel that rescue workers had missed completely." "You're the people from the tunnel slide rescue?" Sheriff Martinez's expression changed. "I heard about that. How did your son know where to look?" "He says the animals and people talk to him," Maya replied, knowing how insane it sounded. "I know it's hard to believe, but he's been right about everything so far." Sheriff Martinez looked down at Ethan again. "How old are you, son?" 5. And Scout is 5 too, but in dog years that makes him older than me. Despite the tension of the situation, Sheriff Martinez almost smiled. "And Scout told you where Lily is?" "Scout can smell her fear from here, and I can hear her calling for help, but she's not using her voice because she's too scared." Maya watched the sheriff weigh her options. Every minute they spent talking was another minute Lily remained missing. Finally, Sheriff Martinez made a decision. "Okay, son, show me where you think this treehouse is, but you stay close to me and your mother, understand?" Ethan nodded seriously. "Scout needs to come too. He knows the exact spot." The group that followed Ethan and Scout behind the pond was larger than Maya had expected. Sheriff Martinez, 2 other officers, a search and rescue coordinator, and several volunteers all trailed behind as her 5-year-old son led the way with complete confidence. The area behind the pond was overgrown and wild. Tall grass, thick bushes, and mature trees created a natural maze that would be easy to get lost in. Maya could see why search teams might have missed something hidden in this tangle of vegetation. "I don't see any treehouse," one of the officers muttered. "There," Ethan said, pointing to what looked like a solid wall of ivy and tangled branches about 30 feet ahead. "It's behind all the green stuff." Scout suddenly stopped and began whimpering softly. his nose pointed in the same direction Ethan was indicating. "What is it, boy?" Sheriff Martinez asked. "He smells her," Ethan translated. "She's scared and hungry and she wants her daddy." As they pushed through the undergrowth, Maya began to see what Ethan was talking about. Hidden behind decades of overgrown vines and branches was the weathered wooden frame of what had once been a treehouse. It was built between several large oak trees, about 8 feet off the ground, and so completely camouflaged by vegetation that it was nearly invisible. "Jesus," breathed the search coordinator. "How long has that been there?" "Lily," Sheriff Martinez called up toward the structure. "Lily, honey, if you're up there, it's okay to come down. We're here to help you." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, so quietly Maya almost missed it, came a small voice from above. "I want my daddy." The rescue that followed was careful and methodical. Lily Thompson, 7 years old with blonde pigtails and dirt-streaked cheeks, had climbed into the abandoned treehouse during the previous night's thunderstorm and had been too afraid to climb down in the dark. She'd spent the night alone, cold and terrified, convinced she was lost forever. As the fire department carefully extracted her from the treehouse, Maya watched Ethan's reaction. He stood beside Scout, both of them calm and patient, as if they'd known all along that everything would work out fine. "How did you know she was up there?" Maya asked him quietly. Scout could smell her fear, and I could hear her heart beating really fast because she was so scared. Sometimes when people are really scared or really sad, their feelings get so loud that I can't ignore them. "Do you hear other people's feelings all the time?" Ethan shook his head. "Only when they really need help, like Scout did, and like Lily did." When Lily was safely on the ground and reunited with her frantic parents, Sheriff Martinez approached Maya and Ethan. "I need to ask you both some questions," she said. "What happened here today, and what happened yesterday with the dog rescue? It's not normal. I need to understand what we're dealing with." Maya felt defensive. "My son isn't doing anything wrong. He's helping people. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong, but I am saying that a 5-year-old with this kind of ability needs to be protected, and the people he helps need to be protected too." Sheriff Martinez knelt down to Ethan's level. "Son, has anyone else asked you to help them find things? Any adults you don't know?" Ethan considered this seriously. "No, the voices I hear aren't trying to trick me. They're just scared and need help." "What kinds of voices?" "Animals, mostly. Sometimes people, but not very often. And sometimes—" Ethan paused, glancing at Maya. "Sometimes people who aren't here anymore, but they're worried about someone who is here." Maya felt that familiar chill. "Like Officer Jake?" "Who's Officer Jake?" Sheriff Martinez asked. Maya explained about Scout's previous handler and Ethan's encounter with him the night before. She watched the sheriff's face carefully, waiting for the skepticism and dismissal she'd come to expect. Instead, Sheriff Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "Mrs. Rodriguez, can I speak with you privately?" They walked a few steps away from Ethan, who immediately sat down with Scout and began what looked like a serious conversation with the dog. "I need to tell you something," Sheriff Martinez said quietly. 3 months ago, we had a case involving Jake Morrison's death. He had a heart attack while searching for a missing child in the woods north of here. We found him 2 days later, but we never found the child." Maya felt her stomach drop. "What happened to the child?" "Tommy Hendricks, age 4. He wandered away from a family camping trip. Jake was part of the search team, along with Scout. They'd been working together for 6 years. Sheriff Martinez paused. "Jake died trying to find that boy, and Tommy's body was never recovered. The case is still open." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because yesterday I got a call from a hiker who found children's clothing near Devil's Creek, about 2 miles from where Jake died. We're organizing another search." She looked at Ethan, who was still deep in conversation with Scout. "I'm wondering if your son might be able to help us find closure for both families." Maya followed her gaze. "You want Ethan to help find a dead child? I want to know if Jake Morrison is still out there, trying to finish his last case." That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold, staring at Sheriff Martinez's business card. Elena had come over to watch Ethan while Maya tried to process everything that had happened. "You're seriously considering this?" Elena asked. "I don't know what I'm considering. 2 days ago, my biggest worry was whether Ethan's imagination was getting out of control. Now I'm being asked to help solve missing person cases with my 5-year-old's psychic abilities. Maya, this is dangerous. What if word gets out? What if people start expecting Ethan to solve every missing person case in the county? What if someone tries to exploit his gift? Maya knew Elena was right. Already, there had been reporters at the park today asking questions about the miracle boy who'd found Lily. Social media was buzzing with videos of the rescue, and Maya's phone had been ringing nonstop with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. What if I don't have a choice? Maya said quietly. What if this is who Ethan is meant to be? From the living room came the sound of Ethan's voice, talking quietly to Scout. Maya couldn't make out the words, but the tone was serious, comforting. Elena, can you stay with Ethan for a few minutes? I need to make a phone call. Maya stepped outside and dialed Sheriff Martinez's number. Martinez. Sheriff, it's Maya Rodriguez. I've been thinking about what you said today, about Jake Morrison and the missing boy. And I need to ask you something first. If Ethan helps you, if he finds something that brings closure to these families, what happens next? Do you keep calling us every time someone goes missing? Does this become our life? Sheriff Martinez was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Rodriguez, in 20 years of law enforcement, I've learned to trust my instincts. My instincts tell me that your son has a gift that could help a lot of people. But my instincts also tell me that he's just a little boy who needs to be protected. So, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we take this one case at a time. If Ethan can help us find Tommy Hendricks, or at least give his family some peace, then we'll consider whether there might be other situations where his help would be appropriate. But always with safeguards, always with his well-being as the top priority. Maya looked through the window at Ethan, who was now lying on the floor with his head on Scout's side, both of them staring up at the ceiling. When would you want to do this? Tomorrow, if you're willing. The search area isn't far, and we could have you back home by afternoon. I'll call you in the morning with my answer. Maya hung up and went back inside. Ethan looked up as she entered the living room. Mommy, Scout says Officer Jake wants to show us something tomorrow. Maya's breath caught. What kind of something? Something he's been trying to show people for a long time, but nobody could see it. Ethan sat up, his expression unusually serious for a 5-year-old. Scout says it's important, and it will make a sad family happy again. Maya sat down on the couch, pulling Ethan into her lap. Baby, are you scared when you hear these voices? Ethan thought about this carefully. Not scared exactly, sometimes sad because the voices are usually sad. But I know they're not trying to hurt me. They just need help. What if I told you that tomorrow we might be able to help another family, but it might be scary or sad? Are you going to be with me? Yes. And Scout? Yes. Ethan nodded. Then it's okay. When people really need help, being scared doesn't matter as much. Maya held her son close, marveling at his courage and wisdom. At 5 years old, he seemed to understand something about compassion and service that most adults never learned. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow we'll help Officer Jake finish what he started. That night, Maya hardly slept. She lay in bed listening to the sounds from Ethan's room, the soft breathing of her son, the occasional shifting of Scout's position on the floor. But sometime around midnight, she heard something else. Footsteps in the hallway. Maya got up quietly and crept to Ethan's door. She peered inside and saw her son sitting up in bed, Scout alert beside him. Both of them were looking toward the window, where a shaft of moonlight fell across the floor. I know, Ethan was saying quietly. We'll help you tomorrow, I promise. Maya couldn't see anyone else in the room, but the temperature had dropped noticeably. She watched as Ethan nodded seriously at something only he could see. He says thank you, Ethan said, apparently addressing Scout. He says he's been waiting a long time for someone who could hear him. The temperature in the room returned to normal, and Ethan lay back down, pulling his blanket up to his chin. Scout settled beside the bed with a contented sigh. Maya stood in the doorway for a long time, processing what she'd witnessed. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever they found in the woods where Jake Morrison died, she knew their lives had changed forever. Her son wasn't just a little boy with an overactive imagination. He was something much more extraordinary and much more frightening. Do you believe some children are born with special gifts that adults can't understand? The next morning dawned gray and misty, the kind of weather that made everything feel hushed and uncertain. Maya had called Sheriff Martinez at 7 a.m. to confirm they would help with the search. Now, as they drove toward Devil's Creek, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were crossing a line from which there would be no return. "Mommy, Scout is nervous," Ethan said from the back seat, his small hand resting on the German Shepherd's head. "He remembers this place." "What does he remember?" "The day Officer Jake got sick. Scout tried to help him, but Jake told him to keep looking for the little boy." Ethan's voice was soft, almost distant. "Scout has been having bad dreams about that day." Maya glanced in the rearview mirror. Scout did seem agitated, shifting restlessly in his seat, his ears constantly moving, as if he were hearing sounds no one else could detect. They met Sheriff Martinez and her team at a small parking area beside the creek. The search crew was smaller than the one from yesterday, just 6 people, including Maya and Ethan. Sheriff Martinez had explained that they wanted to keep this quiet until they knew what they were dealing with. "Mrs. Rodriguez, before we start, I need to make something clear," the sheriff said as they gathered around a map of the search area. "If at any point you feel this is too much for Ethan, we stop immediately. His safety and well-being come first." Maya nodded, but she could see in Sheriff Martinez's eyes the same desperate hope she'd seen in her own reflection that morning. 2 families needed closure. A dedicated officer's final mission needed completion. And somehow, her 5-year-old son held the key to it all. "Where do we start?" Maya asked. "The area where we found Jake's body is about half a mile upstream. The children's clothing was discovered near a fallen log about 200 yards from there." Sheriff Martinez looked at Ethan. "But I'm thinking we should let Scout and Ethan guide us." Ethan was already standing at the edge of the creek, Scout beside him. Both of them were perfectly still, heads tilted as if listening to something the adults couldn't hear. "This way," Ethan said suddenly, pointing upstream along a narrow path that paralleled the water. "Officer Jake is waiting for us." As they walked, Maya noticed how the forest seemed to grow quieter around them. Even the sound of their footsteps on the muddy path felt muffled. Scout moved with purpose now, his earlier nervousness replaced by focused determination. "Ethan," Maya said quietly, "can you see Officer Jake right now?" "Not exactly see him like I see you, but I can feel where he is, and I can hear him talking." Ethan paused, listening to something. "He says he's sorry it took so long for someone to hear him." They walked for about 20 minutes before Scout suddenly stopped and began whimpering. The dog's whole body was trembling, and he kept looking back and forth between a cluster of large rocks and a thick stand of pine trees. "What is it, boy?" Sheriff Martinez asked. "This is where Officer Jake got sick," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Scout was with him, and they were following Tommy's scent, but then Jake's heart started hurting, and he fell down right there. Ethan pointed to a spot between the rocks where the ground was slightly lower than the surrounding area. Maya felt her throat tighten. "Where's Tommy, baby?" Ethan closed his eyes, his face scrunched in concentration. Scout pressed against his leg, offering comfort and support. When Ethan opened his eyes again, they were filled with tears. "He's not lost anymore, Mommy. He went to sleep a long time ago, right after Officer Jake did. But Officer Jake couldn't leave him alone, so he's been staying here to keep him company." Sheriff Martinez knelt beside Ethan. "Can you show us where Tommy is?" Ethan nodded and began walking toward the pine trees. As they followed him deeper into the woods, Maya noticed that Scout's demeanor had changed completely. The dog was no longer nervous or agitated. Instead, he moved with the careful dignity of a soldier honoring fallen comrades. "Here," Ethan said, stopping beside a large pine tree whose roots had created a natural hollow in the ground. "Tommy is here, and Officer Jake is sitting with him." Maya looked at the spot Ethan was indicating. It looked like nothing more than a depression in the earth, covered with pine needles and fallen leaves. But as she watched, Scout approached the area and lay down beside it, resting his head on his paws in what looked like a guard position. "Ethan," Sheriff Martinez said gently, "are you sure?" "Yes. Tommy got scared during the storm and tried to hide under the tree roots, but the ground was soft from all the rain, and some of the dirt fell down, and he couldn't get out." Ethan's voice was matter of fact, but tears were streaming down his cheeks. "Officer Jake found him, but it was too late, and then Jake's heart got too sick, and he couldn't go get help." One of the search team members had brought a small folding shovel. Sheriff Martinez nodded to him, and he began carefully removing the layers of debris from the hollow. Within minutes, they found the first piece of evidence, a small blue sneaker, partially buried in the soft earth. "Oh, God," whispered one of the officers. "It's okay," Ethan said, though he was crying harder now. Tommy wasn't scared when it happened. Officer Jake was holding his hand, and he told him stories about Scout and all the good dogs he'd known. Tommy fell asleep listening to stories. As the excavation continued, Maya pulled Ethan away from the immediate area. This was no place for a child, gift or no gift, but Ethan resisted her attempts to lead him back toward the creek. "I can't leave yet, Mommy. Officer Jake wants to tell me something important." "What does he want to tell you?" Ethan stood very still, his eyes focused on something just over Maya's shoulder. "He says there are other people like Tommy and Scout who need help. He says I'm going to meet more people who can hear the same voices I hear. And he says I need to be very careful because not everyone who wants to help is really trying to help." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the damp forest air. "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet, but Officer Jake says Scout will help me know the difference between good people and bad people." Ethan looked up at Maya with those serious dark eyes. "He says you're going to have to make some hard choices, Mommy." Before Maya could respond, Sheriff Martinez approached them. "Mrs. Rodriguez, we've found enough evidence to confirm that this is Tommy Hendricks. We'll need to bring in a full forensics team to complete the recovery, but thanks to Ethan, we can finally give the family some closure." Maya nodded, but her attention was still focused on her son. "Sheriff, can we talk privately for a moment?" They walked a short distance away, leaving Ethan with one of the other officers. Scout remained at his post beside the hollow, as if he were standing guard over Tommy's resting place. "Sheriff Martinez, I need to ask you something. How many other cases like this are there? How many other families are waiting for answers?" The sheriff's expression was grim. "In my county alone, dozens. Across the state, hundreds. Some of them decades old." She paused. "Why do you ask?" "Because I think what happened here today is just the beginning. And I'm scared about what that means for Ethan." "Mrs. Rodriguez, what your son did today, what he's done over the past few days, it's extraordinary. But you're right to be concerned. Word is going to get out. People are going to start asking questions, making demands." Maya looked back at Ethan, who was now sitting on the ground beside Scout, both of them staring at the excavation site with quiet reverence. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should be very careful about who you trust, and I think you should consider getting some kind of protection for your family." "Protection from what?" "From people who might want to exploit Ethan's abilities, from media attention that could turn your lives upside down, from law enforcement agencies who might want to treat your son like a tool instead of a child." Sheriff Martinez's voice was serious. "Mrs. Rodriguez, what Ethan can do, it's powerful, and powerful things attract all kinds of attention, not all of it good." As they drove home that afternoon, Ethan was unusually quiet. Scout seemed exhausted, sleeping in the back seat with his head in Ethan's lap. Maya kept checking the rearview mirror, worried about her son's emotional state after such an intense morning. "How are you feeling, baby?" "Sad for Tommy's family, but happy that they'll know what happened now." Ethan stroked Scout's fur gently. "Scout feels better too. He says he's been carrying a heavy feeling in his chest since the day Officer Jake died, but now the feeling is lighter." "Are you sorry we went today?" Ethan considered this seriously. "No. When someone needs help, you help them. That's what good people do." Maya's heart swelled with pride and fear in equal measure. Her son's compassion was beautiful, but she was beginning to understand that it might also be dangerous. When they got home, there were 3 messages on Maya's answering machine. The first was from a reporter with Channel 7 News, asking for an interview about the miracle boy who solved 2 missing person cases. The second was from someone claiming to represent a television production company interested in documenting Ethan's story. The third was from a number she didn't recognize, a man with a smooth voice who said he represented certain parties interested in discussing Ethan's unique talents. Maya deleted all 3 messages without writing down the callback numbers. That evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, he grabbed her hand before she could leave the room. "Mommy, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, baby?" "Tonight, a new voice is going to start talking to me, someone who has been waiting for a long time to be heard." Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. "But this one is different from the others." "Different how?" "The other voices needed help. This one wants to help me, Maya felt goosebumps rise on her arms. Help you do what? Learn how to use my gift better. Learn how to help more people without getting too tired or too sad. Ethan yawned, his eyes growing heavy. Scout says it's okay, though. He says this new voice smells like kindness. Maya kissed her son's forehead and turned off the light, but she didn't leave his room. Instead, she sat in the chair beside his bed, determined to stay awake and witness whatever was about to happen. Around midnight, the temperature in the room began to drop. Maya watched as Ethan's eyes opened, but he remained lying down, perfectly calm and unafraid. "Hello," he said softly to someone Maya couldn't see. "Are you the one who's going to teach me?" Maya strained to hear a response, but heard nothing except the soft sound of Scout's breathing from his spot on the floor. "My name is Ethan, and this is my mommy Maya, and that's Scout. What's your name?" Ethan listened for a moment, then smiled. "That's a nice name. Mommy, this is Sarah. She says she's been like me since she was little, and she's been watching over other kids like us for a very long time." Maya felt her world shift again. "Sarah's like you?" She can hear voices and help people find things that are lost, but she learned how to do it without getting scared or sick. Ethan sat up in bed, his attention focused on his invisible visitor. "She says there are others like us all over the world, and sometimes we help each other." "What does she want to teach you?" Ethan listened again, then turned to Maya. "She wants to teach me how to put up walls in my mind so the voices don't get too loud. And she wants to teach me how to tell the difference between voices that really need help and voices that might be trying to trick me." Maya felt a mixture of relief and terror. Relief that Ethan might learn to control his gift. Terror that there was apparently a whole world of people with similar abilities that she knew nothing about. "Sarah says she's going to visit me in my dreams sometimes, and she'll teach me little things that will help me help other people better." Ethan lay back down, pulling his blanket up to his chin. "She says you don't have to worry, Mommy. She'll help me stay safe." As Ethan drifted off to sleep, Maya remained in the chair, processing everything that had happened. In less than a week, her quiet life with her son had been turned completely upside down. They had rescued a trap-to-dig found a missing child, solved a 3-month-old missing person case, and now apparently made contact with some kind of network of psychic individuals. Maya looked at Scout, who had lifted his head and was watching her with intelligent eyes. "What are we getting ourselves into, boy?" she whispered. Scout's tail wagged once, and as if to say everything would be okay, but Maya wasn't so sure. As she finally headed to her own bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that their real adventures were just beginning. The next morning brought new challenges she could never have imagined. Have you ever felt like your child was destined for something bigger than you could understand? Maya woke to the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. The clock read 6:47 a.m., and the caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. She let it go to voicemail, but within seconds, it was ringing again. Different number this time. By the time she dragged herself to the kitchen to make coffee, there had been 12 missed calls from 12 different numbers. "Mommy, there are people outside," Ethan said, appearing in the kitchen doorway with Scout at his side. Both of them looked toward the front window with expressions of concern. Maya pulled back the curtain slightly and felt her stomach drop. 3 news vans were parked across the street, their satellite dishes extended toward the sky. Reporters with cameras were setting up on the sidewalk, and a small crowd of curious neighbors had gathered on the corner. "How did they find us?" she whispered. Her phone rang again. This time, she recognized the number as Sheriff Martinez. "Maya, don't go outside. Don't answer your door. Don't talk to anyone." "What's happening?" "Someone leaked the story about yesterday's search. It's all over the morning news. Psychic boy solves cold case. 5-year-old supernatural gift brings closure to grieving family. Your name and address got out somehow." Maya's legs felt weak. She sank into a kitchen chair, watching through the window as more vehicles arrived. "What do I do?" "Pack some bags. I'm sending a patrol car to escort you and Ethan to a safe location. You can't stay there." "A safe location? Sheriff, this is our home." "Not anymore, it's not. Maya, you need to understand something. The Tommy Hendricks case made national news. The story of a 5-year-old boy who can communicate with the dead and find missing people has gone viral. Every media outlet in the country is going to want to talk to Ethan." Maya looked at her son, who was sitting on the floor with Scout, both of them staring at the front door as if they could see through it. "Ethan, what are you hearing right now?" "Lots of voices, but not the kind that need help." These voices are excited and greedy. Ethan's brow was furrowed with concentration. Scout says some of the people outside don't smell right. What does that mean? They smell like they want something from us, but they don't care if it hurts us to give it. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. Sheriff Martinez, how long until your officer gets here? 10 minutes. Start packing now. Maya threw clothes and essentials into 2 suitcases, while Ethan gathered Scout's food and toys. Through the windows, she could see the crowd outside growing larger. Someone was knocking on her door now, calling out questions about Ethan's gift. Mrs. Rodriguez, just 5 minutes of your time. America wants to hear your son's story. Ethan, can you help us find our missing daughter? We'll pay you $50,000 for an exclusive interview. Ethan covered his ears and pressed closer to Scout. Mommy, they're so loud. All they're wanting is making my head hurt. Maya knelt beside her son, pulling him into her arms. I'm so sorry, baby. I should have protected you better. It's not your fault, Mommy. Sarah told me this would happen. She said when people find out about gifts like mine, some of them try to take the gift instead of respecting it. Before Maya could ask what that meant, she heard the sound of a police siren. Through the front window, she saw a patrol car pull up to the curb. The crowd of reporters immediately surrounded it, shouting questions at the officer who got out. The officer, a tall woman with short gray hair, made her way through the crowd and knocked on Maya's door. Mrs. Rodriguez, Officer Janet Collins, Sheriff Martinez sent me. Maya opened the door just wide enough for Officer Collins to slip inside, but not before several cameras flashed and reporters shouted more questions. We need to go out the back, Officer Collins said immediately. I've got another unit waiting in the alley. Bring only what you absolutely need. As they gathered their bags, Maya noticed that Ethan had gone very still again, his head tilted in that listening pose she'd come to recognize. What is it, baby? Sarah is here. She says we need to hurry because there are bad people coming who want to take me away from you. Officer Collins looked at Maya sharply. Who's Sarah? It's complicated, Maya said. Ethan, what kind of bad people? People who want to study me like I'm not a real person. People who think they can own my gift. Ethan's voice was scared now, younger than his years. Sarah says they have papers that say they're allowed to take children away from their families if the children are special. Officer Collins grabbed her radio. Martinez, we have a problem. How far out are those federal agents you mentioned? Federal agents? Maya's voice cracked. What federal agents? I'm sorry, Mrs. Rodriguez. I should have told you earlier. The FBI has opened an investigation into Ethan's abilities. They want to interview him, run some tests. Officer Collins looked grim. Sheriff Martinez has been trying to stall them, but they're not taking no for an answer. Maya felt the world spinning around her. They want to take my son? Not permanently. At least that's what they claim. But, Maya, you need to understand that there are people in the government who see children like Ethan as potential assets, resources to be studied and possibly utilized. Mommy, Ethan said quietly, Scout says we need to leave right now. The bad people are almost here. As if summoned by his words, Maya heard the sound of multiple vehicles pulling up outside. Through the front window, she could see black SUVs parking behind the news vans. Men and women in dark suits were getting out, showing badges to the reporters, clearing a path toward her front door. Back door now, Officer Collins ordered. They slipped out through Maya's small backyard, Scout moving silently beside them. Officer Collins led them through a neighbor's yard to the alley where another patrol car was waiting. As they climbed into the vehicle, Maya could hear shouting from the front of her house. Where are we going? Maya asked as they drove away from her neighborhood. Safe house about an hour outside the city. Sheriff Martinez arranged it with some friends who owe her favors. Officer Collins glanced at Ethan in the rearview mirror. Son, those voices you hear, can they tell you if we're being followed? Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Sarah says there are 2 black cars behind us, but they're staying far back so we won't notice them. She says the people in the cars are talking on radios about where we might be going. Officer Collins cursed under her breath and picked up her radio. Martinez, we've got a tail. 2 vehicles. They're tracking us somehow. Ditch your phones, came the sheriff's voice through the radio. All of them. Right now. Maya pulled out her phone reluctantly. It was her only connection to the outside world, her lifeline in emergencies. But she rolled down the window and threw it out, watching it shatter on the asphalt. Ethan, does Sarah have any other advice for us? Ethan was quiet for a moment, then his eyes widened. She says to take the next right turn and go to the old church with the broken bell tower. There are people there who will help us. Officer Collins looked confused. Son, I don't know any church around here that matches that description. Sarah says you will when you see it. She says the people there are like me and they've been waiting for us. Maya felt like she was falling down a rabbit hole. Ethan, how many people like you are there? Sarah says there are more than I thought, but fewer than there used to be. She says some of them learned to hide their gifts so well that they forgot how to use them. Ethan pointed out the window. There, the church! Officer Collins slammed on the brakes. Ahead of them, barely visible through a stand of old oak trees, was a small white church building with a cracked bell tower. It looked like it had been abandoned for decades, but smoke was rising from a chimney Maya hadn't noticed at first. I've lived in this county for 15 years, Officer Collins said slowly. I've never seen this church before. Sarah says that's because it's only visible to people who really need to find it, Ethan explained matter-of-factly. As they pulled into the overgrown parking lot, Maya saw several other vehicles hidden among the trees. Cars from different states, an old van with faded paint, a motorcycle with saddlebags. The front door of the church opened, and a woman stepped out. She was in her 60s, with long silver hair and kind eyes. But what struck Maya most was the way Scout reacted to her. The dog, who had been anxious and alert all morning, immediately relaxed and wagged his tail. You must be Maya and Ethan, the woman said as they got out of the car. I'm Margaret. We've been expecting you. How could you have been expecting us? Maya asked. We didn't know we were coming here until 5 minutes ago. Margaret smiled. Sarah called ahead. Inside the church, Maya was amazed to find it wasn't abandoned at all. The pews had been removed and replaced with comfortable furniture arranged in conversation areas. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace, and she could smell coffee brewing somewhere in the back. 6 other people were scattered around the space, men and women of various ages, all of them watching Ethan with expressions of understanding and warmth. Welcome to Haven, Margaret said. This is a place where people with gifts like Ethan's can find safety and support. A young man with dark hair and gentle eyes knelt down to Ethan's level. Hi there, I'm Marcus. I can do something similar to what you do, except I help find lost objects instead of lost people. And I can communicate with animals, added a woman with short red hair. My name's Beth. Scout's been telling me all about your adventures. Ethan looked around the group with wonder. You can all hear things that other people can't hear? We all have different gifts, Margaret explained, but we've all learned how to use them safely and how to protect ourselves from people who might want to exploit our abilities. Officer Collins, who had been standing near the door looking increasingly uncomfortable, cleared her throat. This is all very touching, but we still have federal agents looking for this family. What exactly are you people proposing to do about that? Margaret's expression became serious. Janet Collins, badge number 4782, 17 years of service, divorced, 2 children in college. You became a police officer because your younger brother disappeared when you were 12 and was never found. Officer Collins took a step back. How could you possibly know that? Because your brother is here, said a teenage girl with dark skin and bright eyes. His name was Kevin, and he wants you to know that what happened to him wasn't your fault. He got lost in the woods during that camping trip, but he wasn't scared because he knew you were looking for him. Officer Collins sat down heavily in one of the chairs, tears streaming down her face. Kevin? He says he's been watching over you all these years, and he's proud of the work you do helping people. He says that's why you're here now, because you're meant to help protect Ethan the way you wished someone could have protected him. Maya watched this exchange with a mixture of awe and terror. These people weren't just psychic, they were incredibly powerful, but they were also clearly on their side. What's going to happen to us? Maya asked Margaret. That depends on what you want to happen, Margaret replied. You can't go back to your old life. Too many people know about Ethan now, but you have choices. What kind of choices? You can disappear completely. We can help you create new identities, relocate somewhere safe, teach Ethan to suppress his abilities until he's old enough to decide for himself how to use them. Margaret paused. Or you can learn to work within the system. There are people in law enforcement and government who genuinely want to help gifted individuals like Ethan use their abilities safely and ethically. And the third option? Maya asked, sensing there was more. You can join us, Become part of a network of people dedicated to helping others while protecting each other. It's not an easy life, but it's a meaningful one. Ethan, who had been listening quietly while Scout explored the church, suddenly spoke up. Sarah says there's a fourth option, too. What's that, sweetheart? Margaret asked. We can go home and face the bad people, but we don't have to face them alone. Sarah says if we're brave enough, all of you will help us stand up to the people who want to use my gift for bad things. Maya felt her heart swell with pride and terror. Her 5-year-old son was proposing to take on the federal government with the help of a group of psychics operating out of a mysteriously invisible church. Ethan, that sounds very dangerous. Mommy, everything we've done has been dangerous, but we've helped people, and that's what matters. Ethan walked over to her and took her hand. I don't want to hide who I am. I want to help people like Scout and Tommy and Lily, but I want to do it the right way, with good people helping me. Margaret nodded approvingly. Spoken like a true guardian. A guardian? That's what we call people like Ethan, people whose gifts are meant to protect and serve others. Margaret looked at Maya. It's your choice, Maya, but you should know that whatever you decide, Ethan is going to be extraordinary. The question is whether he'll be extraordinary in hiding or extraordinary in the light. Maya looked around the room at the faces of these remarkable people who had somehow found each other and created a place of safety and purpose. She thought about everything that had happened in the past week, all the impossible things that had proven true, all the lives that had been touched by her son's impossible gift. If we do this, she said slowly, if we go back and face whatever's coming, will you really help us? We'll do more than help, Margaret said. We'll stand with you, all of us. Ethan squeezed Maya's hand. What do you think, Mommy? Maya looked at her son, this brave, compassionate little boy who could hear the voices of the lost and desperate, who had already saved lives and brought closure to grieving families. She thought about the alternative, hiding, running, teaching him to deny the very thing that made him special. I think, she said quietly, that it's time to go home and show the world what real magic looks like. Outside, Scout barked once in agreement, and Maya could swear she heard the sound of invisible applause. But first, they had to survive what was waiting for them back in the city. And Maya had a feeling that was going to be the hardest test of all. If you've been following Ethan's incredible journey, you know this story is far from over. Like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Do you believe there are people in this world with gifts we can't understand? And what would you do if your child was one of them? The final chapter of this remarkable story will leave you speechless.